Mike. Thank you for your passion and just laying out exactly what the problem is and how the Chinese government is so repressive and, in fact, won't even let their own citizens know about this history of Tiananmen Square. And so it's important that we remind the world that this happened 30 years ago, that there's still people in China today that want to speak out and are not allowed to, or stomped down by their own government. And so as President Trump continues to put pressure on China, we stand with him in letting people know that this goes on, needs to stop. China needs to respect the views and the freedom of their own individual citizens. We also remember this week the 75-year anniversary of the Normandy invasion. D-Day was such a turning point for America and our allies in the fight against Nazis and to defeat the Germans and ultimately to win World War II, and that pivotal moment where we lost so many people, but we won such an important battle in the Battle of World War II. I'm honored to be an early supporter and to be able to go and see the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. It's one of the places where we're able to capture the history of World War II and to tell the story of the greatest generation. For so long, our heroes from World War II wouldn't share their stories even with their own children because they just felt it was a duty that they carried out. But when they came home, they just carried on a normal life and didn't feel what they did was extraordinary. And yet the world knows, we sure in America know, how extraordinary the efforts were and the heroism was of the greatest generation. And I'm proud to be able to help celebrate that when we share the World War II Museum with millions of people from all around the world. And there was a proud moment last week where the American Spirit Award is given out every year by the World War II Museum to people who exemplify that history. And last week, Dick Cheney was one of the recipients. And so I know Liz was there proudly with her father and with her children to be able to, again, pass that kind of history on to the next generation. That's what the World War II Museum is all about. So I'm glad Liz got to be able to be there and be part of what was, I'm sure, a special moment, having Dick Cheney receive the American Spirit Award. This week, we don't have a lot of legislation on the floor, as has been the custom of Nancy Pelosi's speakership. They don't have much of an agenda. They're focused on impeaching the president. But this week, the only real bill they're bringing to the floor is focused on giving amnesty to millions of people who are here illegally, but specifically to people that have actual criminal backgrounds. And one of the many disturbing parts of the amnesty bill that is going to be voted on today, Speaker Pelosi has language in the bill that blocks law enforcement from accessing the gang database. So today, so many prosecutors across the country were able to use that gang database to identify people that are part of or associated with gang activity. And yet in the bill, they block law enforcement from even being able to access that gang database. So it's a bad bill. It's a bill that shouldn't pass, but we'll see if they're able to get the votes, and hopefully this would never get to the president's desk because it's not the way to solve our problems with immigration. We've got a crisis at the border. This bill adds $34 billion of unpaid for spending to give amnesty to people, and yet there's not a single dime in this bill for border security. And it just goes to highlight that there is a crisis at the border, and Democrats in Congress refuse to solve this problem. In fact, in the next 2 weeks possibly, HHS could run out of money that has been allocated to them to address the health problems that are related to the thousands of people that are coming across our border illegally every single day. President Trump weeks ago sent a request for over $4 billion to address this crisis at the border, and Speaker Pelosi refuses to take action. And if she doesn't take action in the next few weeks and HHS runs out of money, which right now they're scheduled to do, think about what's going on right now. So thousands of people are coming over every single day illegally. Department of Homeland Security receives them and stops them and detains them. By law, they've got to detain, let's say, young children. And if some of those young children have health problems, they turn them over to HHS to help take care of those kids. Well, if they run out of money in the next 2 weeks, and there's no money for HHS to take care of the health needs to these kids, they're still going to be held by DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and there will be no way to make sure we can take care of the health needs of those kids. That's why President Trump called on Congress to take action. Speaker Pelosi refuses to address this crisis. It is about to reach ahead in the next few weeks. We shouldn't let it get there. Congress needs to act. We're calling on Speaker Pelosi to take action on the president's request for this crisis at the border and take action now.